Welcome to MyTutorZone.
So here's part 2 of the lesson. We're going to start with a few easy ones and then we'll progressively work our way harder. So we'll make a part 2 or a part 3 of this lesson, part 2 in solving, but part 3 just in understanding how to translate algebraic expressions. So the first one we're going to look at, and if you notice in a different color I put the key words. So I hope you wrote down the first part of when we went through the chart of all the key words to look for when seeing this. But here it says 6 more than a number. Well, what do we know about that? Well, we know that more than is going to be addition. Now, the key thing that I want you to see is here. It's talking about a number. Whenever it says a number, it's not giving us what the value of the number is. So that's when we go ahead and we use a variable. So whenever you see a number, think of a variable. And you can put a variable in place. Now, does it matter what kind of variable you use? No. You can really use any letter. It's good to just stick with X. You know, you can use N, P, Y, R, S, Z. Those are more of the common ones, but again, whatever you feel is best. I like to just stay with X. Sometimes I'll throw in an A in there or whatever it is. But so let's see here. So we have a number. So we know that it's going to be 6. And then it's going to say 6 more than. Well, more than is going to be addition, because here, more than tells us that we're going to put an addition sign. And then we have the number 6. So we have x plus 6 will be our expression here. 6 more than a number. Okay? Well, what about the next one? We have something like this. We have 4 minus 3 times a number. So if you notice, we're kind of working backwards, because here what we're going to do is we're going to look at this first. So let's look at this. So we have 3 times a number. So times again means multiplication, and a number that again tells us that we're going to use a variable, right? So we're going to do 3 and then times a number. Well, let's use y for example. So 3 times y, but we're doing 4 minus. Again, you see how it's kind of going a little bit backwards? We're not writing this. We're not writing 4 minus 3y, because that's not exactly what it is, because that's written as something completely different. So the key thing here on this, I'm going to go ahead and just cross that out for you guys, is that we're going to do 3y minus 4. Okay, because you're taking away 4 from 3 times y. That's the way you would explain it. You're not taking 3y away from 4. That would have been this problem that I crossed out for you right here. Okay, so hopefully you guys understand that whenever it's the 4 minus or a number minus, you put that on the back end of the problem there. Okay, now let's see here. What's the next one? We have 7 less than the product of 2 numbers. We have 2 numbers now here. We're saying the product of 2 numbers. So what are we going to do here? Well, we're given 2 numbers. Are we given those? No. So again, right here, think of a variable. So let's do A and B. We'll do A and B, and we put them next to each other because that means a multiplication. And remember, product means multiply, right? So the product of 2 numbers is written as A times B. And again, we're not doing 7 here, so it's not going to be this. It's not going to be 7 minus AB, because it's not saying that. It's saying 7 less than. So we're doing the product of the numbers, and we're taking away 7 from there. So that's the main thing that you want to remember on there, because I know it can get a little tricky, but this is not how you would write it. You would write it as AB minus 7. So the product of 2 numbers minus 7, or 7 less than the product of 2 numbers. So here are your answers. Hopefully you understood that. And we're going to go a little deeper in a few more problems so you get it completely.
Hello, David Magallanes here. Thank you for visiting MyTutorZone. Subscribe to MyTutorZone and receive one-on-one online tutoring, a homework zone, and specialized student learning and tutoring. MyTutorZone, online individualized student tutoring for educational excellence. Enroll now. Click on the button below. Welcome to MyTutorZone.
So you're probably asking yourself, what is absolute value? Well, to kind of give you the best example, let me go ahead and do this for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and draw a number line. Okay, now I'm not going to put all the numbers on there, but I'm going to put 0. I'll put, let's say, -1, -2, and -3. Okay, now if you're taking notes and following along, go ahead and do everything that I'm doing. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so what's absolute value telling us? Well, absolute value, we always have a question because I remember being in class and I was thinking, I kind of get absolute value, but I don't understand the true meaning of what absolute value actually is. So here's the best explanation I can give you. Let's say you had the absolute value of 4. If you don't know, the absolute value of 4 is 4. Pretty easy, right? Well, then I got confused in class because the teacher would always say the absolute value of -4 is also 4. And I kind of just went with it because I really didn't know what to think about it. And no one ever explained to me why these were the same answers. They just always said absolute values always have to be positive. So that was fine. Here's the way I'm going to do it. Let's look at this -3 right here. So we go ahead and we have -3. So we go ahead and have -3. Now, with that -3, we're going to say, what's the absolute value of it? Well, all absolute value is telling us is that it's the distance on a number line from that number to 0. So how many spaces is -3 to 0? It's 1, 2, 3. Now, distance always has to be represented in a positive number. That's why absolute values always have to be positive. So the absolute value of -3 is basically telling us, whoops, sorry about that. The absolute value of -3 is basically telling us that it's the distance from -3 to 0 on the number line. So how many spaces is it? It's positive 3 spaces. Well, what if we go here and we talk about 3? Well, how many spaces is 3 on the number line? From 0. So how many spaces is 3 to 0 on the number line? It's 1, 2, 3. Again, positive 3 spaces though. Because I know a lot of times people say, well, you're moving backwards on one and you're moving the other way on another number. It doesn't matter because whether you're walking backwards or if you're walking forward, you're always walking a distance, but distance can never be negative. You can never drive on a road trip and go negative miles, whether you're coming home or whether you're going to your destination. And that's the same way that absolute value will work. Now, on a test, you might give in something like a true or false question, and you might say the absolute value of 3 is equal to -3. Anytime you see the absolute value equaling a negative number, always cross that out and say that's false. It can never happen. You can never take the absolute value of a number and have it be negative. But you can take the absolute value of a negative number. So if there's a negative number inside of the problem, so like -142, then you know that that will equal 142.
Hello, David Magallanes here. Thank you for visiting MyTutorZone. Subscribe to MyTutorZone and receive one-on-one online tutoring, a homework zone, and specialized student learning and tutoring. MyTutorZone, online individualized student tutoring for educational excellence. Enroll now. Click on the button below. Welcome to MyTutorZone.
Now, before we do our second portion of knowing about points, lines, and planes, there's a few things that we want to understand. Actually, two main important concepts that we really want to make sure that we understand. And that's read right here as collinear and coplanar. So let's say that again. We have collinear and we also have coplanar. And what this means right here is that when something is collinear, that means that you have points that are going to be on the same line. So let's look, for example. Let's look at line L again. Remember, we could read it as line L this way or as line AB. And it's read as AB because we have 2 points that are on this line. So point A and point B are collinear because they actually share the same line. It's like if you guys were playing tug of war, the people on that would actually be collinear because they're sharing the same rope or they're sharing the same line. Now, if you had a spectator, let's say we had point C who was just watching it. So point C was just watching your game of tug of war, for example. They weren't sharing the rope, so they're not part of the actual game. So in geometry terms, they're not considered collinear. Just like right here, point A and point B are on the line, so they are collinear. Point C is not. So collinear, you want to remember, share the line. That's an easy way for us to remember. Okay? So collinear shares the line. Now what about coplanar? What's the difference between coplanar and collinear? Well, in geometry, things actually sound a lot harder than what they really are. Coplanar just means that they share the same plane. So again, if everyone was here in the sandbox at school playing, point A, point B, point C joined them this time, right? They are all coplanar. Now, what if we have D, who got in trouble at school, so D is over here watching. If D is outside of the plane, D is not coplanar. The only ones that are coplanar are A, B, and C. So that's very important for us to remember. So remember, in coplanar, they share the plane. Now that we have those, let's go ahead and try some examples, and we can really understand this stuff on a more complex scale.
Hello, David Magallanes here. Thank you for visiting MyTutorZone. Subscribe to MyTutorZone and receive one-on-one online tutoring, a homework zone, and specialized student learning and tutoring. MyTutorZone, online individualized student tutoring for educational excellence. Enroll now. Click on the button below. Welcome to MyTutorZone.
So today we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves into intermediate algebra. And the main thing that we want to talk about is first understanding what the difference is between an expression and an equation. So when you're sitting in class and you have a test or you're doing homework or whatever it is that you're doing, and you see expressions, the key word in there is going to say evaluate the expression. And then when you see an equation, it's going to say solve. Now you're asking, well, what's the difference between an expression and equation, or what's the difference between evaluating and solving? So we'll go ahead and do this. Let's just say we had 4x plus 2 plus 3x. If we have something like this, it's going to tell us to evaluate the expression. Evaluate is an easier way of just understanding saying simplifying. So here we would say simplify. So we would have to go ahead and combine our like terms. So we would have 4x and we would have 3x. Those are like terms, whereas 2 is a term all by itself. There's no other like term to that. Now, if you're confused on that, we have lessons that are talking about like terms and that you can watch to help you understand that better. But then we would say, okay, well, I'm going to do 4x plus 3x plus 2. And that's going to give us 7x plus 2. So all I did was just add 4x plus 3x, added 4 plus 3, which gave us 7, and the x just stays the same. And then I brought the 2 down. So there I simplified it the best I can, or I evaluated the expression. Whereas if we were going to solve, we would see something like this. It would say 4x plus 2 equals 10. Now we're going to have to solve, because solve, the key thing in solving is it will have an equal sign in it. Evaluating won't have an equal sign in it. That's the main key difference. So here we do the opposite of solving. We subtract 2 to both sides because our key thing is to get this x right here by itself. That cancels out, so then we do 10 minus 2, and that gives us 8. And we bring everything that's left over. This 4x is here. So now when you have a number next to a variable, that means multiplication. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Yes, that's right, division. So then you would go ahead and divide by 4 to both sides of the equation. When solving, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. That's why here we subtracted 2 to both sides. So this cancels out because 4 over 4 can cancel out, and now that leaves us with just x. So I'm going to write this over here. And 8 over 4 gives us 2. So here, x will equal 2. So our answer in this case is x equals 2, whereas here, evaluating it gives us 7x plus 2.
Hello, David Magallanes here. Thank you for visiting MyTutorZone. Subscribe to MyTutorZone and receive one-on-one online tutoring, a homework zone, and specialized student learning and tutoring. MyTutorZone, online individualized student tutoring for educational excellence. Enroll now. Click on the button below.